Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
First item, approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I do have some adjustments to the agenda, if I may, please.
Sure.
On the consent agenda, item number 3, we have add-on commissioners' warrants as of this morning for $16,771.32. $16,771.32. And please remove item number 5, the treasurer's report, January 22nd. They're working on that and getting some trial balance issues balanced out, so hopefully we'll have that for the next meeting. Okay. And at 9:45, please delete the advertising of the bids for the North Hiawatha project. I conferred with County Attorney Sandy yesterday, and he recommended that we do not do any advertising until the plat is approved by the city and has been filed with the county recorder. So when that happens, we'll go ahead and then begin the process. And when that will be, I don't have a date yet.
Okay.
So still stay tuned with that. And also on the very bottom on upcoming meetings, those dates should be changed to 2/22 of 22 instead of 1/25 of 22. So I had to err on that. I just pulled those from last month, so my fault on that. And those are my changes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. With that,
Chair, with those adjustments, I'll move the agenda.
okay. Is there a second?
I'll support that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approve the consent agenda. Approve the minutes of 1/25/22. Approve the auditor warrants from 1/28/22 and 2/4/22. Approve the commissioner warrants along with the add-ons of $16,771.32. And approve the hospital warrants of $639,970.74.
Mr. Chair, I'd move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Nick, you're up.
Good morning. All right, first up for me today is project updates. And the first update I have is on page 2. It's for our 2022 box culverts. That's contract number 2. Everything did check out on those bids, so that has officially been awarded then. Then if you skip down 2 projects to that 2020 gravel screening, I have it later on the agenda to approve the final payment for that. And then last page are seal coats and overlays. We have a bid opening set for those projects as well. Next up for me then, along with that bid opening for our last box culvert contract, we have our standard, we need a resolution and approval of the grant agreement to receive the grant funds. The formatting is a little bit different on the agreement, if you notice. Really what that is since it's a new pot of money, they go through and redo their form a little bit. I don't know why. Wish they just leave it the same so it's a little easier to follow, but I suppose it looks like they're doing more with it or something. But either way, this is the same agreement that you're used to seeing. It's just a little bit different format. There's an agreement and a resolution that need to go along with accessing those bond funds.
This is an action item.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of the bond agreement and resolution.
Dan will second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right. Next up would be the approval for the final payment for the 2020 gravel screening project. This one drug on a little bit. There was a little bit of there's some confusion on as far as how we were paying some items. And the contractor did sign off on how we had proposed to pay them. So, yeah, that's the final payment amount is $3,369.01.
Mr. Chair, I'd move for approval.
I'll support that. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Next up for me is a request to purchase supplies. If you recall, every year we purchase about a half load of crack sealer for the roads. This year there's a new to us product called Mastic. Rock County's been using this for about 10 years. This is for filling a little bit bigger cracks than what our crack sealant material does. Our County Road 10 west of 75 is in need of a little additional help to try to smooth that out and help with that ride. After doing some research, talking around with some folks at the state, I think this mastic material will be the way to go. Like I said, Rock County's been doing it. I talked to that engineer. He's happy with it. So I think I'd like to try this out. If this works like I think it will, this might be something we can start doing every year. We could have included it in the contract this year, but for a smaller area, I think we would have paid a premium to do that. So I think I'd like to try it ourselves. Plus smaller quantity, trying it ourselves. We'll see how it goes for us, and maybe we'll want to take on a little bit bigger adventure with it in the future then. So our state aid maintenance money will pay for that. So as you see, I didn't talk about how much is in the budget for that. That's because our state aid maintenance money will be picking that up. Yeah, I didn't specify an exact dollar amount because we order just a half truckload, and that they'll actually weigh it, so that'll vary some, but this will give you an idea of a ballpark. We got two prices. They were within $200. I'd like to go with the more expensive one because the quote from Mid-States, we have to rent the machine to apply it. When we book that, we book a week on the calendar, and it doesn't matter rain or shine, that's our week. If we don't use it, too bad. Versus Brock White, they'll say, well, if it's raining that week, we'll just push it back a week.
Okay.
And that's a lot of money to kind of risk Minnesota spring weather on.
For $200.
For $200, yeah. Yeah, and we need to do this in the spring because it needs to be done before our overlay. So, spring weather is just kind of hard. We plowed snow in May before, so I don't really want to risk a few $1,000s based on, hoping that we have good weather in April or whatever. So that's why I would like to go with the Brock White quote, or estimate, I should say.
Mr. Chair, question for Nick. So this new product then is to stay more pliable? Is that what the advantage is of it?
It's made for filling bigger cracks. So what we have going on in this road is, I think it was a 6-mile stretch. 5 of the miles got graded in the fall, and then they ran into bad weather, and they had to finish grading it in the spring, and they paved it all that year. In that last mile, we've seen a lot more ride issues in it, which I think is because it didn't go through a freeze thaw before it got paved. And that's why I like to leave our culverts unpaved for a year and go through.
So they can settle,
Yeah. So the segment of road is County Road 10. It's the first mile west of Highway 75. If you go up there and actually stop and look at the cracks, they're pretty wide, and it goes all the way through the pavement. You can see the base underneath it. And it's almost like it's not just a crack that's separated. It starts to slope down to the bottom and then back up. So it's a lot more than crack seal is meant for. Plus, you don't want a lot of crack sealant with a hot overlay on it because it can make it bubble up, and then you get bumps that way too. So it's kind of a different application needed here anyway. So.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve the purchase of this new crack sealant mastic. Give it a try, see how it works.
Yeah, they're two separate
Two separate
products. Yeah. Yep, crack sealant and then mastic. They're separate.
Both, and the machine as well. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
I would second that. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, next up, if you recall, last year we put out for bids for tiling, or trying some tile on some of our county gravel roads. We've been running into the worst problems on. The two roads that we advertised for last year are the same ones I listed here this year. They get a lot of heavier traffic on them. I believe we sent it to three tiling companies last year, but none of them submitted a bid, but we had kind of a tight timeline on it last year. So I said I'd come back earlier in 2022 and we try to give them the whole year pretty much up until harvest to get it done. In my mind, this would be good work for them to do in the summertime, like later summer when the crops are up and they don't want to go running down everything in the field, then they do our road. So my estimates here, that's the estimate I proposed last year. I haven't looked at tiling. I wouldn't expect it to be up from there a little bit, but just like everything else. But otherwise, this is the same project that we advertised for last year. I still think I'd like to try it out to see how it performs.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right, next item for me. I assume we want to do an annual road and bridge hearing again. So I'm curious if anybody has any dates. I didn't really look at any for me. There's a lot of moving pieces here, so if there's one in particular that works well for the board, I'll see if.
How about February 28th?
Monday, the 28th.
Yep.
That'd work for me.
That works for me.
It's good with me.
Okay.
So we just plan on that then?
Yeah, if that's, it doesn't really matter to me, whatever works best for everybody else. I just got my phone out here to make sure I can be there.
That'd be good.
Yeah,
It was your idea.
that'd be kind of bad if I couldn't make it, so.
Location
County building?
or EMS?
We did it at EMS last year,
Right.
so we could spread out a little bit more. That seemed to work well. I can rig up that projector in our office, but I think it's probably bigger, better picture out at EMS. So,
Well, you got the two screens.
yeah, I'm fine with whatever. It works fine for me either way. So whatever works best for whatever you all prefer. It's fine with
Nothing on the
me.
calendar right now. No, calendar's clear.
Shall we plug it in then?
Works for me.
28th.
9 o'clock in the morning? Or 10? What was it?
9, isn't it
I
usually?
think it's usually at 9 if I remember right.
We need a motion on that, or?
Yeah, let's do a motion on that, please.
Okay.
So moved.
Support that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
All right.
At EMS.
Next for me then would be maintenance updates and miscellaneous. January we worked on a bunch of tree removal to help with snow catch areas and site issues. We plowed snow a few days and we had some blow ice that we worked on for a few days. So that pretty much summarizes January. And then last item for me, if you recall, we approved an intersection study at the Dars corner. That's moving forward. They're hoping to have it done by this spring. We have a little kickoff meeting coming up in the next, I don't remember, week or two. Not really sure what it's about. I've never been part of one of these before, but I'll find out. But they hope to have it done this spring, so that's moving forward. So outside of that, that's all I had for today. Anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, had the new sign truck out yet?
I saw it go to Edgerton the other day.
Oh, you did? Well, there's your answer then. Yeah.
Does that thing hang to the right because the hoist is on one side?
Yeah, they noticed that when they put the box on it, and it might have to go back to the truck builder. I'd have to ask for. I know that was an issue at first
Just
to get the
wondering if
frame straightened.
more tools on one side or on the other side, or try to balance it out a little.
I'm guessing it has to do with the crane because
Talk about micromanaging. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
We followed it and it turned to it.
Oh, okay, okay.
We were discussing how sharp it looked, and it doesn't it lean to the right? Yeah.
You're right. It does. No, that's a good observation. So,
Dan and I was up and looked at it
Beautiful
a
truck.
month ago.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
a pretty impressive outfit.
That crane, that has got some capacity. That's
okay. See, I don't know anything about cranes myself, so I know our old one has one, but I'm sure it's nothing compared to this one. So, so yeah, this will be a huge improvement from. what
And I
we had.
believe when we visited, you talked about the fact that the manufacturer's got training for our people with the equipment that's on it, like the crane, for example, that needs some specialized training. And
Yeah, I don't know if that's through the body manufacturer. I just know that we've sent multiple guys
Yeah.
to get certified to run the crane. I can't say that's through the manufacturer. I'm not sure. I'd have
but in
to-
any case, there's training that goes along
correct,
with it.
and we've been through that. So
You got to know when to quit.
Yes, yeah.
You mentioned tree removals. I noticed you guys helped the city out with the 8th Avenue stretch, and a bunch of those, like the pines you had talked about years ago, those are all gone. It's incredible difference on
well, good,
8th Avenue.
good.
I don't know if you've been on it lately, but it's
I'm taking that way out of here. I've been out quite a bit lately, dealing with some stuff at home, but yeah, I'm gonna go look at some tree stuff today. So
Now you're doing some stuff in south on 8th Avenue, County Road 15, and that's in conjunction with the city. How you guys doing that? I see you working together on that.
I'm not sure exactly what part you're talking about. I know we have been doing some
Those
work
ash
with
trees
them.
going south along 8th Avenue or County Road 15 in the city limits.
Okay, I don't know of how many days or what pieces, but I know we've been doing some work with them. If it's like some of this stuff is, I don't know how to say it. It's been a lot better to work with them versus us doing some of our own stuff and them doing theirs. So I don't know. It's good to get that stuff cleaned up.
This is a large number of ash trees, and it's just too bad with the emerald ash borer that we're losing so many of those trees, but it's quite a project.
Is it in town? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I knew it was working this way, but yeah.
Anything else for Nick?
All right.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. Thank you.
We'll get your contract signed here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, Steve. That's yours. Wayne, you're up next.
Good morning.
Morning,
Morning.
Okay, we've been working on trying to get some Atmos air to help clean the air in this all the county buildings, and we got a bid of $32,300 to do courthouse, highway, EMS, and public service building. The only one that's not on here yet is mental health. We gotta wait and see about that one, but.
Chairman, I got a little video for you so you can see what
Yeah.
atmosphere is, that would help a little bit. This is, we've been talking about this for quite a while.
Yep. It's quite a system.
You've probably heard someone say, "I'm going outside to get some fresh air," as if the air inside isn't fresh, right? Well, often it's not. Inside air can be loaded with airborne allergens, bacteria, odors, and other harmful particles and pollutants. They can make people sick, less productive, or absent from work, and all are costly to employers. Many of these contaminants spread from the inside, which means they're out of the reach of typical air filtration systems. Since we spend 90% of our lives inside, shouldn't we be paying more attention to inside air? That's why we developed Atmos Air. Atmos Air is the only indoor air purification technology that works proactively and within a space to reduce contaminants and pollutants. It restores inside air to what you'd find on a mountaintop. From offices to hospitals, stadiums to schools, Atmos Air provides health and wellness benefits to keep occupants feeling healthier and more productive. Here's how it works. When outdoor air comes into a building, oxygen molecules are carried over specially designed bipolar ion tubes. An energy field converts these molecules into positively and negatively charged ions. These ions then travel into occupied spaces to seek out oppositely charged bad air particles, VOCs, and odors. When they combine, it forces them to break down and drop out of our breathing range to reduce contaminant levels and improve our health and wellness. And to show you it's working, our Atmos-aware indoor environment sensors and monitoring system allow you to see your air quality in real time. Atmos Air lets you confidently design HVAC systems according to ASHRAE's indoor air quality procedure, the more sustainable alternative to the ventilation rate procedure. The IAQP is approved by the EPA, USGBC, and is ASHRAE and IMC compliant. Atmos Air's purification delivers the cleanest indoor air possible, while also enabling reductions in outside air intake for significant energy savings and lower equipment costs on new and retrofit projects. Only Atmos Air gets you cleaner, mountain-fresh inside air and sustainable energy savings, plus proven results that remove up to 95% of ultrafine particles and up to 90% of VOCs. It can minimize HVAC system size by up to 15% and reduce outside air intake by up to 50%. Plus, save up to 30% on HVAC electrical costs with an average 3-year installation cost payback, all while contributing to LEED and WELL building standards. Get the purest inside air, only with Atmos Air. Visit atmosair.com today.
I'll just add too that Pat and I are gonna do the installation of these.
Oh, you are?
Yep, yep. And then we got it, Corey's gone, so I couldn't get a bid for the electrical, but that'd be on top of this.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very simple to
Yeah.
do.
Yep.
About a month ago, we had a meeting with Atlas Air, Building and Ground Committee, and it's kind of impressive. They make them so small that you can put them in your home furnaces too,
Oh, wow.
in the ductwork. And very reasonable price for a homeowner.
Yeah.
I believe in the system. I believe in the technology. In fact, you mentioned the home ones. I fully intend to buy one for my home as well too.
I said that US Bank Stadium has them.
Well, when they have them big doors turned open, all kinds of contaminants can blow in.
So it's new technology.
As far as cost on it, Steve, I believe our ARPA money can be used for this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, which I like that. You know, it's yes, it's still taxpayers' money, but it's not coming out of our local levy, and we can see a huge improvement in our environment for our employees. So I certainly am in favor of it. In fact, if it be appropriate at this time, do you have a specific proposal for us to move on to take action on at this point, or is this for information only today?
Mr. Chairman, the recommendation is to purchase the devices from Mechanical Sales of South Dakota based on the request for board action for $32,300.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion that we approve that expenditure, $32,300, did you say, Steve?
Right. We will have, understand that we will have electrical
Right.
contractor expense on top of that, but we'll have staff installing the units themselves, so that'll cut down on our installation costs.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second?
One second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Just have one question. On the first page of the bid, it says something about, that price is not unloaded. So does that mean you're unloading it, or?
They're probably gonna show up on a pallet, I suppose, so we'll unload
Yeah,
it.
Right.
yep.
Well, that way we don't have to pay the freight company to unload, so
Right.
we can put them on the, we'll get them unloaded, it's not an issue.
Sure, all the buildings would be one pellet full.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll come.
Yes. Yeah,
Come
but
together.
most of them are fairly small.
Yeah.
You know, we've only got a couple that are bigger for here, this side.
Do we have anything like this on it, PCMC, or?
Yeah, they were on the list of.
There is some there, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right there.
Yeah, I don't know what department they're using it in, to be honest with you. They do have a unit or several out there.
Okay, any further discussion?
The company that does our air handler stuff, they're on board with this type of stuff?
They're connected.
They're the ones that, yeah, they're connected. Yeah.
We aren't gonna run any trouble with them.
No, they're the ones that recommended us putting these in.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yes. Yep.
Any further questions? Not? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Wayne.
Okay.
Personnel, Kathy.
Morning.
I handed out some information this morning to be included in your packet. So in visiting with the sheriff's office, they have a individual that's interested in kind of interning for them or training with them. They've done some ride-alongs with some of the deputies, and they're going to school for law enforcement in the fall. They're going to college in the fall. So the sheriff's office would like to consider us hiring this person as kind of a trainee or student trainee to kind of learn about the jailer dispatcher position, and also maybe do more like ride-along type stuff and learn more about the sheriff's office in general. And then once they're looking at a period of about 3 months, once this person graduates high school and would meet the minimum requirements of the jailer dispatcher, they would be eligible to apply for a part-time jailer dispatcher position as well, and work there in the summer and during school if it works out. So, and this is kind of a new thing that we're looking at. I couldn't settle on a name for the job, so it's jailer dispatcher student intern trainee, which we can shorten a little bit if you guys have a good idea. But so we would be looking at, this is kind of a trial run to see how well this works. We'd like to hire the individual that's approached them for this year, but this could be something we'd be looking at, you know, doing every year. If it's valuable to them and to the sheriff's office, and then we'd be advertising for future, but they do have someone in mind for this year. We'd be looking at hiring them at $18 per hour, like an intern rate for that. So I would be seeking approval of, I guess, hiring this position.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval.
I will second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, we had a good discussion, I think, when we met as a personnel committee on this, and
Right.
I always look at trying to keep our youth, you know, staying within the community too, and I think this is an opportunity that maybe moving forward might provide that too, you know, help growing these people in a certain role, and then maybe after he finishes school, he might want to come back and work for Pipestone County full-time, so,
Grow our own.
yep.
All the insurance and stuff is,
Yep.
would be,
Right, no, this would be like a temporary job, so they would not be, and they wouldn't be working enough hours to get insurance or anything.
but I mean county and liability type insurance.
Oh, no, I don't think that should be an issue. We've had, interns in
Had
the
interns
past.
before.
And also, I was gonna mention this as well, EMS has kind of a training program like this
Okay.
as well. They have associate EMTs. They can start, what, is it 17 they can start as an associate, and then once they're 18, they
Then
can
they can test.
test to be an EMT.
So we've been down this type of road before, so that's good.
Mr. Chair, this also, of course, goes a long ways towards building those positive community relationships we need, and then working in conjunction, of course, with our recess officer out at the school. I think this is a very good thing. In fact, it could maybe be just the seed this could grow into a larger.
Absolutely.
I think it's an excellent pilot program to try to kick off.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. And then just another announcement, the 2 full-time jailer dispatchers are starting next week. They're starting February 14th, and that's Jaime Gardado and Doug Karstensen. So we're happy to have them. They're probably anticipating being staffed in the jail starting March 1st, because they're gonna do some training with these 2. And then we're just continually taking applications for part-time jailer dispatchers as well, so that is still on the website as well. So,
Appreciate your hard work on this, Kathy.
Not easy filling positions.
We're
so
in the crisis.
we're
with-
just happy we had some interest, so.
I think you did a lot of work too to help bring awareness to the positions being open too. I see you put a lot of hard work on social media and stuff too, so thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Kathy.
All right, thank you.
Steve, you're up with the committee assignments.
Right, in your packet, you should have a copy of the committee list. Just go through it one more time with the board. Just know where I made changes on page 1. Chair and vice chair were changed to reflect 2022. Okay, obviously, the date was changed at the top. Second page, under extension, we have our 2 new members of the extension committee, Annika Henkel and Kent Vanderloot. And their dates are through 2024. On page 3, first column under law library, that was changed to less. Page 3, second column on the right, Southwest Health and Human Services was changed to FHS board review. Did it disappear?
It's at the bottom of page 2, I think.
See it?
Bottom page 2.
Oh, there it is,
yep.
okay, it moved up one. So that would be Dan for Human Services and Les for Public Health.
Yep, and that's not a change, that's the way it's been.
No, it's changed.
That's a change.
You were public health.
Oh, so we did switch that.
You gotta be human services because you're chairman.
Okay,
Yep.
that's how we switched that, okay.
Actually, we done it a year ago,
Yep.
but we never changed it here.
Never changed it on this, that's why I was saying I thought we'd already, okay.
I brought that to Steve's attention.
Right.
That needed to be changed.
And that same page, second column under health insurance, I don't have replacement recommended from law enforcement yet, so that will be added when I get that information. So Tom Haig, remember, retired last year, so we need to refill that one. And obviously, instead of Tyler, we have Amanda on that committee. And then on the next page, Safety Committee. Rita Hazelton replaced Natasha Lemke, 2022. And Finance Committee discussed that at the earlier meeting, and instead of quarterly, we changed that to as needed. AMC voting delegates replaced Tyler with Amanda. And the Audit Committee was Les as the chair, and Dan as the vice chair, Amanda as the auditor treasurer on that. And then Southwest 18 Consortium, instead of annual, is now listed as quarterly, as recommended, and the Rock Pipestone Collaborative, instead of annual, is listed now as semi-annual. And the Judicial Ditch Flood Task Force, or Ditch Flood Task Force, was changed to as needed. And we didn't delete that, we talked about that, so I just put that on as an as needed and just leave that as an open committee. And then the last page is the hospital. I chatted with Les on here, so for 2022, shows Les as the chair, Chris as the vice chair, Dallas as the secretary, and an executive committee is Les and Chris. No change to labor relations, no change to advisory council, no change to plant ops, and no change to performance quality improvement. I just, instead of just improvement, I added quality in there. It seemed to explain it a little more clear what it was about. So those are only changes on that. So unless I've missed anything, Mr. Chairman and board members, I'd recommend approval of that.
Looks good to me. I'll move for approval.
Okay, thank you.
I'll support that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Guess the only thing we have left is committee reports. Alice, you want to start us off?
I sure can. January 6th, I did the winter trustee conference, the 2-day one. I was never been to one before, so I did the first one, which was, I forget what they call it, the training or
Boot camp.
Boot camp, there you go, thank you. Some of the things that I took from it, there's 140 not-for-profit hospitals in Minnesota, and there's only 2 that are for profit. There's 36 public hospitals, of which Pipestone is one. 3% bad debt in the hospital system. I didn't think that was too bad, actually, you know, compared to what you hear nationally. The next day was a conference, and talked about retention is the best recruitment. 78% of the growth in Minnesota is in the Twin Cities, which is why we can't get any money back out here. Minnesota is 76.3% white and 23.7 BIPOC. If you people of color is the last one. So indigenous would be the I forget what the B is. But we've lost 51,000 white people in the last 10 years. And then their explanation is that old white people died, which is the population of.
Can I quote that?
That's what I took away from it anyway. They talked a lot better about how. Then on January 4 was the organizational meeting here. January 11 was the regular meeting here. January 20 was fair board meeting. August 3 through 6 are the fair dates. And Donkey Ball was a hit last year. That's coming back. Tractor Pull is Friday night. On 25th, we had another fair board meeting to finalize the music. They're going to be twin performers, Jared Turner and Ashley Barron, that are going to come down. And kind of a package deal from their promoter. So we got to two for the price of one is actually what it amounted to, so. And there was some discussion not having any music at all at the fair, but, my opinion was you can't have a fair without some sort of grandstand music, you know, that's just the way it is. January 24th was Rural Minnesota Energy Board, and we talked a little bit about, before you got here, Dan, about the Summit Carbon Solutions. There's an article in the paper now about it, in the Minneapolis paper.
Yeah, in fact, I was gonna report on that
You
as well,
wanna
too.
do that? I'm just the alternate to that one, so,
Yep.
but it was interesting to sit down on that one. So, the two different places that they're gonna store carbon, they're doing it in Illinois already.
Yep. And North Dakota, well, let's go ahead and discuss it, as all around, yeah, North Dakota's now as well, too, is one of them,
Yep.
so.
Yeah, the pipeline is all privately funded, and
What they're proposing is up to a 24-inch steel pipeline with it, and they want to capture the CO2. Of course, CO2 off of like energy plants and so forth tends to be really dirty because of all the other pollutants in with it. But the CO2 that's produced from the ethanol process, that is very clean, so that's what they're going after, is trying to capture that ethanol. And of course, the money's going to be made in the fact that there's carbon credits for this, so that's where, and there's a lot of venture capital behind this, and it's huge money. But of course, when it comes off, it's in gas form. They have to compress that down to 1,600 pounds psi, and of course, it's liquid at that point. And then they're going to transport it in these pipes, up to 24-inch steel pipes. And they said, well, we're going to bury them at least 4 feet deep, so nobody ever digs into them. So there's a lot of discussion about field tile and everything else. And well, we'll make sure we're underneath the field tile. And then the safety part of it, of course, is that kind of pressure. If it's dug into, of course, as soon as the CO2 liquid is in the atmosphere, it turns back to gas, and it's heavier than air, so it's going to stay down in pools, and it displaces the oxygen, so it'll suffocate anything in the area. And of course, also the 1,600 psi, just that itself will cause a lot of damage, just as that pipe would erupt as well too. So there's a lot of controversy about this. But of course, the point they're making is it supports the ethanol industry. So that's the thing, you know. But the big discussion was too, with when they came to the joint powers of our Rural Minnesota Energy Board, is this an energy issue or is this a waste issue? Is this something more with the solid waste part? It really is both of us, isn't it? As Luke sits on that waste board as well too.
What's the end use of this CO2?
That's just it. In fact, they cannot use anything for it. You know, there are legitimate uses for CO2. Fire extinguishers are CO2, and dry ice is CO2. Yeah. They can't use any of that because all of their funding for this is to be able to dispose of this. So they're going to send it up to the geology in these locations to capture it. And they're going to inject it at least a mile deep in the soil. Apparently there's an area down there where there's some saline, and apparently when the CO2 and saline intermix with each other, it'll be more inert and it won't move. It'll be there stored forever. So that's why they're going North Dakota and also Illinois. Another thing that seems strange about it is there's competing companies doing this. So there'll actually be a pipe in South Dakota collecting it, sending it south to Illinois through Iowa. And there'll be one down in Iowa, sending it north up to North Dakota. I mean, but they came to us because in Minnesota, excuse me, in Minnesota, it's not considered a hazardous waste yet. Excuse me.
when you're using dry ice, it just releases it a different place. It doesn't capture it away from the environment. That's what this is supposed to do.
But it's not considered a hazardous waste in Minnesota. It is in Iowa. So there's a lot of different regulations on that. And so should it or should it not be a hazardous waste? Louisiana has done this on a very small scale. And they have had some injuries down there from some leaks as well. And of course, it's odorless, tasteless. You don't know if it's leaking or not. You don't know until it's displaced the air. But that's why they came to our board, because in Minnesota, because it's not considered hazardous waste, it's regulated by the counties. Whereas in other states, it's regulated by the states. So they're looking to build coalition between the counties, saying, well, this is good for your economic base, and they want our support. So of course, we're looking at our joint powers through Minnesota Rural Energy saying, you know, should we, a county that's not involved in it, really be voting on this, or should it just be the counties where it's in their system? But then we go back to how we formed originally with, of course, the wind. At first, there was very few of us counties that had wind, but we still joined this group together. So how do we work together as a cohesive unit? So it's going to be a lot of interesting discussion coming up.
I know at District 8 land use, when we talked about it, the counties that have it proposed through their counties, they were not in favor of it. Mostly citing the fact that if these rupture, it'll asphyxiate all people and animals within a certain radius of the pipeline. And according to the Tribune article, if they rupture, they could rupture like a zipper, and it could open up mile or miles of pipeline at a time, which, you know, obviously if that were near a city or a large population base, would be a huge problem if all of a sudden everyone couldn't breathe.
And I mentioned the 24-inch pipeline. It's not all 24. They also said, in fact, it's not like the ones in Minnesota.
6 to 8.
6 to 8 here in Minnesota. Yeah.
The reason they target ethanol plants is it's easier to capture there.
Yep.
The smoke out of an ethanol plant is mostly carbon dioxide.
Yep.
For every 3 pounds of corn turns into 1 pound of ethanol, 1 pound of distiller's grain, which you feed to cattle, and 1 pound of CO2. So that's a good source for them.
And cleaner too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because it's been processed and all that.
So Minnesota Rural Energy Board then has contacted the attorney to find out just really where we stand on this as far as our joint powers and just how we're going to proceed with it. I don't know at this point.
$50 a ton was one of the numbers that they talked about that they would get credit for to store it.
And also, then of course, the carbon credits. Then these companies then could sell those carbon credits as well too. You know, it's not just for the ethanol producer itself.
Correct.
And of course, that's where the tax money comes into play.
Yep. And that's also why they won't use the product for any manufacturing process at all. It's going into permanent storage.
Okay, and then on the 25th, we had another fair board, finalized the music. On the 26th, we had a TAC meeting. Hopeful that they can get more people interested in driving now that the license centers are opening up closer. So don't have to go all the way to St. Cloud. For a while there, they had to go up to St. Cloud. That's my report.
Dan?
Okay. My first meeting of the month, and this was on the 7th, and that, well, of course, was in the Minnesota Hospital Association. Dallas covered that, and Luke will have more as well, too. On the 13th, then, I met with my SMOC, Southwest Minnesota Opportunity Council Succession Planning Group. As I've mentioned before, our director is retiring after 30 years. In fact, the 28th of February is his last day. And we've been in discussion with some consulting firms that will do interim type things. We also want to do a more in-depth study of our organization, get some job descriptions and some other things clarified as we go out for a search. So that's where we're at on that. On the 17th, then, also had another SMOC meeting as well, too, where that was presented. The 19th, our Southwest Health and Human Services in Marshall. And again, the major thing there that's going on, of course, is this DHS discussion. We had that in conjunction with Prime West. So Les, if you'd help me as well, to present it. I had you guys, we passed out a copy of some talking points that Jim Prisbaugh, from our director from Prime West, has put together. I won't go through all of them, just the bold part. But what it boils down to is county-based purchasing. We talked about county-based purchasing before. And Kyle, you guys are familiar with that discussion. So, but DHS is charged with distributing these federal funds throughout the healthcare programs. Prime West, being a joint powers group, there was a statute that was specifically written to allow them to form, and that was 25 years ago. I don't remember what the date was, but that's when we first got involved with county-based purchasing. And Prime West isn't the only one in the state. There's 2 others as well, too. And these other ones have filed a suit against DHS opposed to this, and Prime West has decided to join in on that. And there'll be a lot more detailed information for the press as we get that put together. At this point, it's very tentative. These are really talking points for you
Right.
guys to kind of be up to speed on where we're at. But it goes through how the Minnesota law was specifically or expressly written to allow us to provide healthcare services. What DHS, in a letter they sent out, they're saying that they've got the discretion whether they follow the statute or not. Well, and we're saying that no, you don't have discretion to follow statutes. So that's kind of the crux of what all this is about. Yeah, it's the law is the law. And the issue is without that, because we are, yes, competition is good. But in this case, we're competing against ourselves. We're not a for-profit company or even an investor-owned company. We are county-based purchasing. So for us to have to offer an alternative to what we're providing, all it does is first of all, it duplicates cost, because now all of the healthcare providers that are doing the insurance coding and everything else, they all have to know all these different systems. You could relate to that, couldn't you, Kathy, with all the health systems you have to work with. And so it just compounds the work. Plus, it also dilutes our market base, because now we got other people, so it makes it more difficult for us to make it financially work. One of the big advantages, as you all know, with our Prime West is for the care providers, they get reimbursed at a greater rate than what Medicare, Medicaid, and even Minnesota Care can do. And the reason for that is because of the efficiencies of our operation. Again, being county-based, we don't have this huge overhead of salaries that some of these investor-owns have. So as you go down through the bullet points, I'll let you read the detail yourself too, but it talks about how the counties have chosen to provide these services, and Department of Health and DHS is required to fund the county-based plan. County-based plans are not expected to operate simultaneously at the same time with other health plans at that competition. The bottom one on that page then is the DHS is required to give counties the opportunity for input healthcare services in that county. They also go through a process called procurement, and that's where every year, every one of these health plans has to submit to the state, to DHS, in this procurement. And the procurement process is just very lengthy.
It gets more complicated every year.
All the time. And I'm not even sure all the minute detail they go into, but it's very involved. And then they'll award the contract.
I think the last one we done was like 1,700 pages.
Yeah. So on the back page, then it talks about these requests for proposals. So DHS announced that in 2022 it will award contracts to public health providers for both, special needs and so forth. Minnesota Senior Health Options. So I guess the very bottom line then, or ultimately these questions of county authority under existing law. So that's where we have decided Prime Health, Prime West, and Prime Health, Prime West has decided then to go ahead and join in this legal action. So very tentative at this point, but I want to get you guys up to speed of where we're at. We'll have more information coming.
I think it's also indicative of agency power grab that continues to go on, where the agencies feel that they can obviously usurp the law and make their own decisions, even not relying on the statutes. It's just ridiculous that they think they can bypass the current law and do what they want.
This county-based purchasing law and that started, I equated a lot, of course, with my background with rural electric. This is really what we saw back in the 30s. The investor-owned electric utilities didn't want to be out in the rural areas. There's no profit for it. So that's really where the co-ops started from. They formed together to be able to provide power to their people. Of course, then they had the surplus electricity off of taming of the rivers, the hydro dams. So that went to the municipals and the rural electrics. Well, then you started getting, as these communities grew and there was a greater profit margin there, then you had the investor-owned companies coming in saying, well, no, that's not fair. They're getting cheaper power than we can generate ourselves. That's not fair. They've got preference power off the dams. You shouldn't do that. Plus big fights over territory. Now you've got a city that's growing into a metropolitan area. Now they want that load. So I equate a lot of this same thing, this fight about, well, this isn't fair because you've got preference for these county-based purchasing healthcare units. It's the same fight that we've had for years on that. And like I said, that's my own interpretation of that. More to come on our county-based purchasing.
But I think a lot of the savings county-based purchasing saves the state millions of dollars a year, mostly in, you don't have to pay the administrative costs of a Blue Cross or, you know, the bigger insurers.
Right.
I mean, when you have, the CEO of Prime West getting, you know, 200 and some thousand a year or whatever, versus the head of Blue Cross making 8 or 10 million a year, and the guy under him makes 5 million, and the 10 other, you know, below that make 2 or 3 million. That's a lot of overhead to have to make up before you ever start paying claims.
Plus the bonuses they write themselves at the end of the year too, they're
Exactly.
almost equivalent of their salaries.
Right.
You referenced the power grabs at the state level with all this, and we all know, we've talked about it numerous times before, with that, there's always these mandated services, and how those always wind up being a cost shift and always lands here on the lap of our local taxpayers. Okay, moving on then. Did anything else up at Marshall and Southwest Health and Services? That was the main thing.
That was the main thing, otherwise basically it was just election of officers.
Yep. The Human Services Administrator, there's the statewide organization there as well too, and they had sent a letter to DHS about this, and they got an answer back from them, and I think if you'd like, I can send you guys a copy of that too, but it's the same thing basically, that they can interpret the law any way they want, that this is what they're gonna do. Then on the 21st, then we had our Casey Jones Trail meeting, and also we had a Zoom meeting then with Senator Weber on this, and he was very supportive of it. And again, you've heard this story before as well too, how we were the first trail and we're always getting pushed back to a secondary status, and we never knew about being on a secondary status. So we need more visibility at the statewide level. So we go through the procurement process, the bonding process, I should say, not procurement, the bonding process, that we don't get left out. And that we need, the big obstacle now is having to get land. Now we're down to the point where you've got land that's gonna have to be purchased, and that makes it a lot more difficult than we've been doing with our old railroad right-of-ways. It was so terrific that years ago that people here in Pipestone had the foresight to keep those old railroad right-of-ways intact and not let them get distributed out to the adjacent landowners. But that's why we've been so successful here. But you know, the long-range plan of that with Casey Jones is, you know, to actually get down to Laverne, actually eventually always get a tie into South Dakota someday down through hills, and then as it goes up to Walnut Grove and continues north. So.
But aren't they trying to put together like a regional development plan to get like all the counties that the trail hasn't even run into on board with this to help garner more money?
Yep. Okay, then on the 24th, I had my Minnesota Rural Energy Board meeting. We talked about that. On the 26th, we had a transit meeting. It's a quarterly meeting that we have, and you were at that as well too, or you and Steve. They started charging fares again. You know, during the worst of the COVID, we had a moratorium on that. Also with the fares, we're looking at going with electronic type fare pay thing instead of having to have the tokens and so forth. We think it's almost like a debit card, isn't it? Probably the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah. Who sells them? Are they at the EMS building or the?
They will, yeah, because of course that's where, and I think there's going to be a provision for them to do it online too, isn't there? Yeah. And the drivers, I think, we're going to carry some with them too. I think they'd be able to buy them directly from the driver, too.
Is the card something you scan or?
Punch card.
Or punch?
Oh, no, right now it's a punch card, but eventually it's going to be like a magnetic strip, plastic type card where you can load it, you know, preload it, and then just have a debit off of it. And throughout the Community Action Partners area, there are different fee schedules. We're not all on the exact same fee schedules. That's why it's a pretty intricate software program making that all work. Anything else from transit I'm missing?
No.
Other than that the Pipestone route
Oh,
is
yes.
still not in operation due to shortage of staff.
Of drivers.
To do that, so.
Kathy, you want to start recruiting drivers for? You got rid of that headache years ago, didn't you? Yeah. That was neat. And then also on the 27th, then again, Rural Minnesota Energy CERTS. CERTS is a community economic development group, and we've been having discussions. And the last one was on clean cars, the electric cars. it was interesting, the lady presenting that was from the Twin Cities, and she had said that, you know, she's got one of the first ones, I think she's got a Volt, I think. And she says, yeah, she drives it to see her family in Chicago. And so I asked her, I says, well, how's that going? Well, she says, I have to stop twice along the way to recharge it, she says. And I thought it would just really charge really quick while I ran and used the restroom. No, it doesn't. It takes quite a while to recharge it. And then at home, she says that the way her house is situated, she couldn't get large enough electric circuit to her garage for a level 2 charging station, so she's got just a trickle charge. So it takes a long time to trickle charge. And I says, and do you have a discount rate on that? She says, no, I'm paying full rate for that trickle charge on that as well too. So there's a lot of things to be worked out on that, but of course still promoting zero emissions. So so working on that.
So did she say how much it cost?
No, she did not.
I never want to give those numbers.
No. And then the last thing I've got to report on, and that's not really specific in my area, it'd be more attuned to you, Luke, and that is, you know, the Friends of Scouting group that I've been involved with for years with the paper truck. In fact, there's a press release just coming out today. You probably have seen that, and it's sad because it's been, I think in the press release we talked about 30 years. Actually, it's been 50 years or better that they've been collecting paper up there, and all the tons. It'd be interesting to know the number of tons that we've kept out of the landfill all these years. But what's come to be is, you know, we always had a semi-truck station there, and of course we'd have to sort that and make sure that things weren't intermingled with. They would allow like pop cases and cereal boxes, that not corrugated, but the slick cardboard, that could be all mixed up with it. And our people have done that forever. And but the end market where we've been selling this to has been sold. There's no market for it anymore. We worked with John Blumenthal a little bit as well too, and of course he's working with Millennium, and there just really aren't any markets for that now. The very few that they have will only accept paper if it's baled, and you can't have any of the slick cardboard. There has to be newsprint only. Well, very labor intensive to get that out there. And you know, this has been operated by volunteers all these years. Really dedicated people have been doing that. So it's with a lot of sadness that we've been forced into making a decision that we just can't do it anymore. So that part will be out. So now it's obviously our tonnage will go up for what we're doing then through our other mixed collection as well too. So I'm sure Kyle will have a lot to do as far as getting geared up for that extra tonnage there. It's sad. Personally, it's sad to see this go after all these years. Okay, I've rambled enough, guys. I'm sorry.
Question, does Millennium sort the newsprint out of it when it goes into their facility? Do you know? I have no idea.
Well, remember we toured down there and where they had that sorting station. I don't know to what extent they sort.
I mean, they just sort into paper, cardboard, metal. I mean, it's basically general categories. They don't sort that specifically.
We believe that the end user of the stuff that we've been sending has been using it basically for cellulose insulation. So that's why they couldn't have any corrugated at all in it, but it was never a problem with the slick cardboard. Well, now they want just strictly newsprint only, so. We'll probably be looking at selling our building and so forth down there as well too, because the Friends of Scotty won't have any need for that any longer either, so.
That it?
Yep.
Luke?
Okay, on the 11th of January, we had plant ops at the hospital. On the 12th, District 8 land use, where we talked about the CO2 pipelines. On the 13th, at Soil and Water, Brad Cruselbrink was the winner of a coin toss to replace the vacancy from Larry Fennicle. And then that afternoon, I met with Senator Weber at his office and secured his commitment to seek $70 million earmark to add to the $12 million that's scheduled for a 2024 mill and overlay of Highway 23 from Pipestone to Russell to fully fund the concrete reconstruction of that stretch. On the 14th, Highway 23 Coalition's Priority Projects Committee met. We reviewed the various projects and recommended the priorities of the concrete reconstruction from Pipestone to Russell, preferred route study from Lyon County 33 to the Green Valley 4-lane, the overpass in Wilmer at County State Aid Highway 55, and the preferred route study from Foley to Malacca, while also supporting the safety projects of a J-turn at Belle Claire Drive and Waite Park, and an acceleration lane near Rockville in the eastbound lane to 23. There's a transit company that keeps running trucks out, and they don't have an acceleration lane, and they're entering, traffic that's going 65 miles an hour, and it's a little hazardous. And then the 17th, I had a phone interview with Cheryl Glazer, who's going to lead a strategic planning session March 4th for the Highway 23 Coalition. And then in the afternoon, Les and I and Brad met with some of our officials to discuss various issues. On the 21st, AMC board met. We had a presentation on PTSD and mental health trends for public safety professionals, and adopted a position supporting efforts to address increased duty disability trends by providing public safety personnel and first responders with an array of mental health supports, including interventions to prevent harm and services aimed at getting individuals the care they need to safely return to work. AMC believes the state should have an active and financial role in supporting these efforts and should not create unfunded mandates for local government. Of course, the legislative conference in County Day at the Capitol is March 1st through the 3rd, and hope you will all attend to promote our county's interests and needs. On the 24th, the Southwest Regional Solid Waste Commission met. We passed the resolution to get all solid waste funds to be used for solid waste purposes rather than a portion being diverted to the state general fund. Discussed the need to keep waste energy facilities as part of the waste hierarchy, and issues with future desire of the state to line demo landfills, and why counties don't want more permits by rule scattered around their counties. On the 25th, of course, with the hospital board. On the 26th, the Highway 23 Coalition full board met and set their 2022 priority projects as those 2 preferred route studies, Foley to Malacca and Lyon County to Green Valley 4-lane, the Pipestone to Russell Concrete project, and a potential overpass at Highway 9 in New London, which is one that they were going to put in a J-turn, but they've had like hundreds of residents turning out saying they didn't want one, and so see what happens there. On the 3rd, at Area 2 and RCRCA, they received the first half of the Clean Water Funds for, they got a 600 and some thousand grant out from the Clean Water Funds for Pell Creek, and dredge project on Lake Redwood is shut down for the winter, and Area 2 is seeking $1.5 million in bonding since they got lumped in with DNR the last time they had a bonding request, and of course DNR used it for their top priorities, and Area 2 got nothing, and they've spent all their bonding money from previous years. And then yesterday I missed Minnesota rural counties to sit in on the M&A union negotiations at the hospital, and that's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
On the 10th, I had 2 meetings. I had a personnel committee here, talked about jailer dispatcher positions and other things. And then after that I had the Towards Zero Death, Lincoln Pipestone County Safe Road Coalition. I don't have any of the stats with me, but numbers were up across the board for deaths in the state. It's especially speed-related deaths was the number one thing that stood out. Motorcycle, pedestrian, everything was up. And then I didn't have anything till the 25th PCMC board meeting, and then met with the safety committee on the 31st. And likewise attended all regular commissioner meetings.
That it?
Yep.
Okay. On the 4th, we had our organizational meeting here at the courthouse commissioner's room. On the 10th, Chris and I had personnel meeting. On the 11th, we had commissioners meeting. The 12th, we had Southwest mental health meeting. There wasn't a lot discussed. They're working on some projects, trying to get a certain certification to make the income levels a lot better. So hopefully we get that this year. And then on the 17th, had a meeting at the Prairie Center in Sioux Falls. On the 19th, we had Health and Human Services. Dan kind of highlighted on what was discussed there. On the 25th, we had a hospital board meeting and commissioners meeting. 26th, we had radio board meeting, and that was basically the whole meeting. Majority of the meeting was filling all the committee slots, beginning of the new year, so. And then on the 31st, we had an executive board meeting at PCMC. That's the end of my report. Anything else come before the board? You're good, Steve?
I'm good.
To adjourn.
If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
1 second.
We stand adjourned.
Said that to Dan.
Already did.
Okay, perfect.
I included you on it too in your emails.
Okay.